Welcome to Abiding Hysteria, a monthly podcast where women and gender-diverse people tell their healthcare stories, and we explore how intrinsic bias in the healthcare system has affected their lives. I'm your host, Rachael Woodard, and this mini episode is about my healthcare journey and why I'm doing this podcast. To learn more about the podcast, follow us on social media such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Abiding Hysteria. If you're interested in telling your healthcare story on the show, please email me at abidinghysteria@gmail.com. To support the show for only $5 a month, become a patron at patreon.com/abidinghysteria. Now, on to my story. The reason I've come to this topic is deeply personal. I've always been the sick kid from an early age, but in my late teens and early 20s, I experienced what it felt like to be without medications, in decently good health, and strong, even while dealing with untreated mental illness. Then, during my first full-time job at the age of 23, still living with my mom, the pain started. I would come home from work and weep because I was in such extraordinary pain, but I thought that I could work through it, that it was only temporary. It began with pain in my left wrist and hand, so I thought it was carpal tunnel, since both of my brass instrument musician parents had had the surgeries when they were younger. So I saw a wrist specialist. He ran some tests and everything came back normal. He suggested I see someone about my neck, and I was very confused. What could my neck possibly have to do with my constantly dropping things and my wrist pain? Well, it turns out that my neck was curved completely backward from what it should have been, and I had a herniated disc in my cervical spine. The discs between vertebrae are the squishy pads that keep our bones from grinding together, and when they become herniated in that area, they press into our spinal cord and cause pain in the area where the nerves go. In this case, my left hand and arm. So I went to physical therapy. We tried everything: stretches, decompression, moist heat, medication. Nothing helped for long, and my mental and physical well-being were swiftly deteriorating. Finally, it was time for surgery. All along this process, I had doctors and nurses exclaiming how young I was to be having these procedures done since I was in my early 20s. Heck, I still do. And every time it hurt so intensely that so much of my younger adulthood was spent in pain rather than out with friends, starting a family, or building a successful career. That was the beginning of a long journey through physical disability and mental illness that led to where I am today. I just had my 5th spine surgery, a partial discectomy of L5-S1. That's your lower back for those of you keeping track. In January of 2025, which went very well. But now I'm dealing with what seems to be the after effects of COVID, and I'm working on figuring out now whether it's a neurological condition, vascular condition, or autoimmune disease, or all of the above, that is causing fainting episodes, palpitations, intense headaches, and even more scary symptoms. After my first spine surgery, I met the man who is now my husband of over a decade, who's been my champion, my caretaker, and my rock every step of the way. When we met, I had a pretty fresh scar on my neck, but I expressed pride in regard to it. I told him that it was a mark of my survival, and it showed others what I've gone through to be here. We became friends, then dated for a few years, and finally married in 2015, right before my 3rd spine surgery. Without him, without my friends, without my family, without my pets, this journey would have been so much harder. But even with them by my side, this journey has felt so lonely for so long, because there are few who truly understand just how exhausting, frustrating, and devastating chronic pain and chronic conditions can be until they've experienced it for themselves. It's hard to empathize with something you've never felt over a long period of time. That's why I'm here. Besides my own horror and success stories, there are millions of us with similar experiences of doctors not listening, nurses being dismissive, insurance denying a medication or procedure even when our lives literally depend on them, pharmacists denying us medications because of some moral superiority complex, having to choose between food and medication, or having to crowdsource funding for medical reasons. However, there are also stories about the unicorn doctors who listen the first time and take action every step of the way, nurses who are nothing short of heroes, pharmacists who give amazing advice and find conflicts between medications at the last second, and those individuals in insurance companies and doctors' offices who are willing to fight to get what the patient needs, as well as communities coming together to take care of each other despite the healthcare system's failings. It is important to me that we show both sides of the coin in this podcast and treat each guest with the dignity and respect they deserve. It takes a lot of courage to put your story out there, and I hope we all remember this as the community grows. Together, by telling our stories, we can make a difference and effect positive changes in the way women and gender-diverse people are treated by our healthcare systems all over the globe. But more importantly, we can find community with each other, support each other, and know that we are not alone in these struggles. Join me in uplifting the voices of others who have been marginalized by society and the medical and insurance fields for far too long by listening to the show, sharing our content with others, telling your story on the podcast, or becoming a patron at patreon.com/abidinghysteria. I plan on putting out episodes once a month until I have more time to up the frequency to bi-weekly. If you're interested in telling your story on the show, reach out on social media at Abiding Hysteria or email me at abidinghysteria@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, when it comes to your health, you deserve to be heard, understood, and most of all, believed.